The classroom of curiosity. Miss Ricky stood in front of her Interstellar classroom, her delicate hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the holographic display behind her. Today was the day she had dreaded since accepting the teaching post at the prestigious Galactic Academy of Xenobiology. It wasn't the subject matter itself that unnerved her, but the species in question, humans. Ever since humanity had entered the galactic stage, they had been the subject of endless fascination and controversy. Their biology, their resilience, their unrelenting will to survive, it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. For centuries, alien species had thrived in relative harmony, with their biology evolving along predictable paths. But then came humans, defying every rule, every pattern, every expectation. Miss Ricky glanced at her students, an assortment of beings from across the galaxy. There was Vector, a towering reptilian Bralaxian with emerald scales that glimmered under the classroom's bioluminescent lights. Beside him sat Laria, a delicate, translucent anadran, whose body seemed to ripple like liquid starlight. At the back, a trio of mischievous opticans whispered excitedly, their many eyes darting around the room. And of course, there was Zorn, the ever-curious Otheri, whose antennae twitched with anticipation. "Miss Ricky," Zorn began, his voice buzzing like static electricity. "Yesterday, you promised us an in-depth discussion about human biology. The class demands answers." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Miss Ricky sighed. She had been cornered into this topic after months of avoiding it. Teaching about human technology, culture, and history had been fascinating, but biology, that was a whole other beast. "Very well," she said, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "Today, we will discuss the biological uniqueness of humans, what makes them both extraordinary and, frankly, terrifying. The enigma of human adaptability." Miss Ricky tapped the holographic display, and an image of a human appeared. An ordinary man clad in basic athletic wear. The figure was unassuming, yet its simplicity seemed to radiate an unsettling confidence. "Let's begin with adaptability," Miss Ricky said, pacing slowly. "Humans have an unparalleled ability to adapt to their environment. While most species evolve over millennia to suit their surroundings, humans, they do something different. They adapt within a single lifetime." Vector raised a clawed hand. "Adapt how, precisely?" Miss Ricky gestured toward the hologram. "Imagine a being capable of surviving extreme temperatures, from the icy wastelands of planets like Sarna 7 to the scorching deserts of Volcaria. A species that can thrive in gravity that would crush most life forms or in oxygen levels that would suffocate others. They achieve this not through evolution alone, but through sheer determination and ingenuity. Their bodies can push beyond normal limits, and their minds create tools and solutions at an alarming speed." The class stared at the hologram, their disbelief palpable. "Take their circulatory system," Miss Ricky continued, highlighting a diagram of a human heart. "This organ pumps tirelessly, adjusting to extreme physical stress. In combat or flight situations, it can double its output. Their muscles, though seemingly unimpressive compared to species like the Bralaxians, are laced with dense fibers that allow for remarkable endurance and strength." "And their bones?" Laria asked, her voice a soft chime. "Surely they're fragile." "Not quite," Miss Ricky replied. "Human bones are unique. They're both strong and flexible, capable of absorbing shocks that would pulverize most skeletal systems. Additionally, they can regenerate at a rapid pace, healing fractures and injuries that would permanently incapacitate other species. The mystery of human resilience." Miss Ricky tapped the display again, and the hologram shifted to show a human immune system. The intricate network of cells and proteins lit up like a star map. "Now let's talk about resilience," she said. "Humans are walking ecosystems. Their bodies host trillions of microorganisms, many of which are essential to their survival. This symbiotic relationship allows them to fend off diseases that would devastate entire populations of other species. The Opticans whispered among themselves, clearly unsettled. One of them raised a tentacle. "Are you saying their bodies house other life forms?" Miss Ricky nodded. "Indeed, humans are, in a sense, walking colonies, but that's not all. Their immune system is a relentless warrior, capable of adapting to new threats. Viruses and bacteria that would wipe out entire species often leave humans with nothing more than a temporary illness. And if their bodies fail, they use their technology to develop cures at an unprecedented rate." The classroom fell silent. Even the normally boisterous Vector seemed contemplative. The terrifying will to survive. Miss Ricky paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Then she brought up a series of images, humans in various states of survival, a lone figure trekking through a blizzard, a group scaling an active volcano, a soldier crawling through mud with injuries that should have been fatal. "What you see here," she said, "is perhaps the most unsettling aspect of human biology. Their will to survive. Humans do not accept defeat. Even in the face of insurmountable odds, they will fight, they will adapt, and they will endure. This drive is not just biological, it's psychological. Their minds are as relentless as their bodies." Zorn leaned forward, his antennae quivering. "But why? What fuels such determination?" Miss Reiki's gaze softened. "Perhaps it's their fragility. Humans know they are mortal, that their time is limited. This awareness drives them to achieve, to push boundaries, to leave a mark on the universe. It's both their greatest strength and their most dangerous trait." The class reacts. The room buzzed with a mix of awe and unease. Miss Ricky could see the wheels turning in her students' minds. They had studied countless species, but none had left them as shaken as humans. "So," Miss Ricky said, her voice calm but firm, "now you understand why humans are both revered and feared. Their biology is not the most advanced, nor the strongest, but it is the most unpredictable. And that makes them extraordinary." The bell chimed, signaling the end of the lesson. As the students filed out, their chatter was subdued, their minds clearly grappling with the information. Miss Ricky sat down, exhausted but satisfied. She had done it. She had introduced her students to the enigma of humanity. But deep down, she wondered if she had done the right thing. Some mysteries, she thought, were better left unexplored. The Galactic Council's dilemma. The Galactic Council chamber was a monument to interstellar cooperation. A vast, circular room stretched endlessly into a sky dome filled with stars. Delegates from over 100 species occupied their seats, each enclosed in their respective environmental spheres. Some needed gaseous chambers, while others preferred aquatic tanks or gravity-controlled platforms. Despite their differences, they had all gathered for a singular purpose, a purpose that both intrigued and disturbed them. In the center of the chamber, the hologram of a single human hovered. It wasn't an intimidating figure, just an average representation of humanity. Yet, the tension in the room was palpable. The Othari delegate, Chancellor Varick, stood first. His slender, insectoid body twitched slightly as his voice echoed across the chamber. "We must address the human question. Their biological adaptability is one thing, but their unpredictability, their stubbornness, it unsettles the council." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Brelaxian warlord Thrax let out a low growl. His deep, booming voice cut through the noise. "It is not just their biology. Their technological progress rivals that of species who have existed for millennia. I remind the Council that humans have gone from pre-spaceflight to establishing colonies beyond their solar system in less than 3 centuries. How many of us can say the same?" Across the chamber, the Anidran delegate, Lilia, shimmered like liquid mercury as she spoke. "Yes, but they did so by defying convention. Most civilizations grow cautiously, expanding only when necessary. Humans, they throw themselves into the void of space without hesitation. That kind of recklessness, it can destabilize entire regions of the galaxy." Varick nodded solemnly. "And let us not forget their strange biology. Humans seem almost eager to endure suffering. They view pain, exhaustion, and hardship as tests of character. No other species willingly subjects itself to such ordeals. They believe it makes them stronger. The room quieted as the gravity of the situation settled in. Then the soft hum of the speaker system chimed. "Council, if I may," a calm voice said. All eyes turned to the visitor in the center of the chamber, a human. The human perspective. Commander Elias Riss, the human representative to the Galactic Council, stood with an air of quiet confidence. His uniform was simple, devoid of ostentation, but the aura he carried was unmistakable. His dark eyes scanned the assembly with a level of calm that was unnerving to many. "I understand the concerns presented here," Riss began, "but I believe there is a fundamental misunderstanding. Humanity's adaptability and resilience should not be seen as a threat. We do not seek to disrupt galactic stability. We seek to find our place within it." Chancellor Varick's antennae twitched. "A noble sentiment, Commander Rice. But the records speak for themselves. Your people have survived conditions that should have annihilated your colonies. On Ventra 6, your settlement endured when the temperature dropped to levels that froze the indigenous life forms. The Bralaxians lost several outposts in similar conditions. How did your people persist?" Riss smiled faintly. "We adapted. We built underground shelters, used geothermal energy, and developed new insulation technologies within weeks. Humans don't abandon hope because conditions change. We change with them." Thrax leaned forward, his scales rippling. "And what of your soldiers? Reports show that human soldiers on Carthos 9 fought for 72 hours straight without rest during the rebellion. That kind of physical endurance is unnatural. Some in this chamber believe your species was bioengineered for war." Riz shook his head. "We were not engineered for war. But we were shaped by struggle. Our history is one of survival. On Earth, our homeworld, the environment was unpredictable. Disasters, wars, and diseases forced us to evolve not physically, but mentally and emotionally. The will to survive became part of who we are." Lilia narrowed her gaze. "And that is precisely why the Council is concerned. Humanity's drive to survive could lead to expansionist tendencies. The galaxy has seen such ambition before, and it has rarely ended peacefully." Reyes paused, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. "I won't deny that humans are ambitious, but we're also capable of great compassion and cooperation. We don't seek to conquer, we seek to explore. Our curiosity is as boundless as our will to survive." A galaxy divided. As Rice finished speaking, the chamber erupted into quiet debate. Some delegates murmured their agreement, while others exchanged wary glances. Humanity was an anomaly, a paradox of destruction and creation, fear and hope. After several moments, Chancellor Varick raised a hand for silence. "The Council must decide on humanity's status within the galactic community. Do we limit their expansion, or do we welcome them as equals?" The chamber fell deathly quiet. Thrax rose once more, his deep voice carrying across the assembly. "I said we observe. Give humanity the space to prove their intentions. They have earned that much." Lilia hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Agreed. But let us not turn a blind eye. We must monitor their progress closely." Rice inclined his head respectfully. "That's all we ask. Humanity will not disappoint you." After the council, as the meeting concluded, Reyes lingered near the exit, gazing up at the stars visible through the chamber's dome. Footsteps approached, and he turned to see Varick standing beside him. "You spoke well, Commander," Varick said softly. "But you must understand, the galaxy remembers those who rose too quickly. It remembers what followed." Reyes met his gaze calmly. "And humanity remembers what happens when we stand alone. We are not here to repeat history. We are here to forge a new one." Varick's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "For all our sakes, I hope you're right." As Reyes departed the chamber, the stars above seemed just a little brighter, a reminder that humanity's journey had only just begun. The unseen war within. The stars outside the viewport glimmered like distant, silent witnesses to the unfolding events across the galaxy. Commander Elias Reyes leaned against the cold metal of the observation deck, gazing out at the swirling cosmos. The Galactic Council's cautious acceptance of humanity was a victory, but Reyes knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The battle for humanity's place in the galaxy was far from over. The war that concerned Reyes now wasn't fought with ships or weapons. It was waged within the very cells of the human body. The silent mutation. In the sterile confines of the SS Varian, a medical research vessel orbiting the outer rim, Dr. Amelia Grant stared at the screen before her, disbelief washing over her features. What she saw defied every expectation, every established principle of xenobiology. Her research had started innocently enough, a simple analysis of how humans adapted to different planetary environments. But what she discovered in her sample sent a cold chill down her spine. The human genome was shifting. Amelia tapped the console, expanding the holographic representation of a DNA strand. Mutations flickered along the structure, not the random errors typical of evolutionary processes, but structured, deliberate changes, as if the body was rewriting itself in response to external stimuli. Amelia, her assistant, Dr. Naran, whispered from across the room. "What am I looking at?" Amelia didn't turn her head. Her eyes were locked on the glowing strands of altered DNA. It's not just adaptation. This is accelerated evolution, and it's happening across multiple human populations. Naran frowned, his reptilian features creasing in confusion. But that's impossible. Evolution takes generations. Even rapid mutations from environmental pressure wouldn't manifest this quickly. "I know," Amelia replied softly. "But humans defy the rules, don't they?" The viral catalyst. Further analysis revealed the culprit, an ancient virus dormant within human DNA, awakened by exposure to alien environments. The virus, long thought to be a relic of Earth's past pandemics, was reactivating and triggering systemic changes. Yet, rather than causing illness, the virus appeared to unlock hidden potential within the human body. Enhanced muscle regeneration, increased sensory acuity, and even neural plasticity. Amelia's heart pounded as she realized the implications. "This virus, it's not just part of humanity's past," she murmured. "It's part of their future." A dangerous secret. Amelia knew what had to be done. She composed a report for the Galactic Council, detailing her findings, but just as she was about to transmit it, a coded message flickered onto her screen. "Do notice end." It bore the insignia of the Earth Defense Coalition. Moments later, her comms crackled to life. "Dr. Grant," a calm voice said, "you've made an incredible discovery. For the sake of humanity, I advise you to keep it confidential." Amelia's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "That's not important," the voice replied. "What matters is understanding that the galaxy isn't ready to know what humanity is becoming. And neither are we." The transmission cut off, leaving Amelia staring at her screen. Rice's awakening. 2 days later, Commander Rice found himself in a private briefing room aboard the SS Varian. Across from him sat Amelia, her eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. She slid the datapad across the table. "Read it for yourself, Elias. You need to see this." Rice skimmed the report, his expression hardening with each line. By the time he finished, he set the pad down carefully, as if handling a live weapon. "This explains a lot," he said grimly. "The soldiers on Carthos 9, the survivors from Ventra 6, they weren't just lucky. Their bodies were changing." Amelia nodded. "It's already happening, and it won't stop." Riz leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "The council must never know." Amelia's eyes narrowed. "Why not? They deserve to understand what's coming." "No," Riz said sharply. "If the council learns that humans are evolving, becoming stronger, they'll see it as a threat. We're barely tolerated as it is. This will paint a target on every human colony." Amelia exhaled, her shoulders sagging. So what do we do? Rise's eyes darkened. We prepare. Quietly. Whatever's happening to humanity, we'll face it on our own terms. The ripple effect. In the weeks that followed, the EDC covertly gathered data from human colonies. Reports confirmed Amelia's findings. Humans living on distant planets under extreme conditions displayed accelerated physical and mental growth. On Avaris Prime, settlers developed heightened resistance to radiation. On the frozen world of Crayon, human miners could withstand temperatures that would freeze lesser species in seconds. But the most unsettling discovery came from Eden 4, a jungle world known for its toxic atmosphere. The colonists there had developed lung capacity and filtration abilities that rivaled artificial respirators. Some even displayed heightened senses of smell and sight, traits thought impossible for humans. The hidden fear. Rumors spread quietly through human channels, whispered by soldiers and travelers. Humans are changing, they said. We're becoming something more. To the average galactic citizen, humanity remained the scrappy newcomer to the stars. But behind closed doors, the leaders of the Earth Defense Coalition saw the signs. One night, as Race stood once more on the observation deck of the Varian, Amelia joined him. Elias, she said quietly, what if this evolution isn't just biological? What if it's purposeful? Rise's gaze never left the stars. Then we'd better hope the purpose aligns with survival. They stood in silence, watching the galaxy shift and turn, knowing that somewhere, deep within the fabric of humanity, something ancient was stirring. And as the stars whispered their secrets, the galaxy unknowingly prepared for the rise of a species unlike any it had ever seen. The quiet awakening. The lights of New Terra glittered beneath the twin moons, casting long shadows over the sprawling colony city. From orbit, the planet appeared serene. Another successful human settlement thriving on the edge of galactic space. But deep within the heart of New Terra, a quiet revolution was unfolding, hidden from the eyes of the Galactic Council. Commander Elias Race stood at the balcony of the Earth Defense Coalition's outpost, overlooking the city below. His thoughts were restless, weighed down by the knowledge that humanity's next chapter was already being written, not by the politicians or the military, but by the very biology of the people below. Evolution was no longer a slow, invisible process. It was happening now, and Rice could feel it. The whispered changes. Reports flooded in from the furthest colonies, strange occurrences, unexplained phenomena. On the agricultural colony of Arcanus 7, workers had begun exhibiting strength beyond human norms. One farmer had reportedly lifted a collapsed transport shuttle off his injured son with no mechanical assistance. On Tarsus Prime, a mining accident should have wiped out an entire outpost, but survivors emerged from the rubble after days without food, water, or oxygen. Their vitals were off the charts, showing organ regeneration at speeds previously considered impossible for humans. And yet, no one was talking about it openly. These weren't isolated incidents. Humanity was evolving in real time, and for Rice, the implications stretched far beyond individual survival stories. The quiet awakening of the human genome threatened to reshape humanity's relationship with the galaxy, for better or worse. The meeting of the Hidden Council. In a chamber hidden beneath the surface of New Terra, Riz gathered with a select group of human leaders, scientists, military officials, and colony representatives. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of holographic displays projecting data from human colonies across the stars. Dr. Amelia Grant stood at the head of the table, her sharp gaze scanning the assembly. She didn't waste time with formalities. The mutations are accelerating. Amelia began, her voice calm but urgent. Within the next decade, we'll see widespread physiological divergence from baseline human norms. In some regions, we're already dealing with abilities that border on the impossible. If this continues, humans living on different worlds might eventually become separate subspecies. A murmur of unease spread through the room. General Tiber Cole, a veteran of the Carthos 9 rebellion, crossed his arms. His scared face twitched with skepticism. "And you're sure this isn't just natural adaptation to alien environments?" Cole asked gruffly. "Humans have always been adaptable. This could just be another step in that direction." Amelia shook her head. "This isn't normal. Natural adaptation doesn't explain rapid organ regeneration or neural rewiring. We're talking about humans recovering from injuries that should leave permanent damage. Limbs regenerating, immune systems neutralizing alien pathogens overnight. Some colonies are already reporting enhanced sensory capabilities that surpass known biological limits." Cole's skepticism faded, replaced by a grim acknowledgement of the truth. "What about the Galactic Council?" asked Sarah Orin, the representative from Earth's lunar colony. "How long until they notice?" Rice stepped forward, his voice even but firm. "They already suspect something. The Council's patience with humanity is thin as it is. If they learn that we're evolving at an unprecedented rate, they won't see it as a marvel. They'll see it as a threat. The shadow of fear." Raz tapped the console beside him, displaying a rotating model of a human soldier in full combat gear. Next to it, the same soldier was shown without augmentation, yet the vitals displayed extraordinary physical endurance and strength. "We can't risk letting the galaxy know what's happening until we understand it ourselves," Rice continued. "If the Council believes we're becoming too powerful, they'll act, and humanity isn't ready for another war." The room fell silent. For all of humanity's advancements, they were still outnumbered and outgunned by the collective forces of the Galactic Council. "But hiding this, it's dangerous," Amelia said cautiously. "If the wrong people get access to this information, we could be facing internal division. There are those who would exploit these abilities for personal gain." Rise met her gaze. "That's why we'll monitor quietly. I want eyes on every colony. Every incident of accelerated evolution is to be reported directly to me and no one else. If necessary, we'll intervene. But this stays off the Council's radar." Cole nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But what happens when we can't hide it anymore? This awakening. It's not something we can suppress forever." Rice turned back to the viewport, staring down at the thriving city below. He saw children running along the streets, their laughter echoing into the night. How many of them, he wondered, would grow up with abilities they didn't understand? How many already felt the shift within their bones? "When the time comes," Ray said quietly, "we won't hide. But until then, we prepare. Whatever humanity is becoming, we ensure it's something the galaxy will respect, not fear." The hidden experiments. While Ray's worked to contain the situation politically, Amelia delved deeper into the science. In the hidden laboratories of New Terra, she conducted experiments that pushed the boundaries of human biology. Volunteers, soldiers, settlers, and explorers offered themselves to her research, eager to understand the changes happening within them. One subject, a young woman from Ventra 6, displayed rapid cellular regeneration. Cuts sealed within minutes and broken bones healed in days rather than weeks. When questioned, she simply smiled. "I don't feel different," she told Amelia. "I just feel like I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be." Amelia's notes grew thicker by the day, filled with data that hinted at something profound. It wasn't just physical evolution. It was mental as well. Some volunteers showed increased memory retention, problem-solving skills that bordered on precognition, and empathy levels that outstripped baseline humans. Humanity wasn't just evolving to survive, it was evolving to thrive. The Watchers from the shadows. But even as Amelia's research continued in secret, Riz knew they weren't the only ones watching. Across the galaxy, hidden factions within the Galactic Council were already whispering. In the dark corners of space, shadowy agents moved quietly, collecting evidence and preparing reports that would eventually make their way to the highest levels of galactic power. The galaxy was vast, but no secret could remain hidden forever. Riz knew it was only a matter of time before humanity's quiet awakening erupted into the light of day. And when that day came, The universe would either stand alongside humanity or stand in its way. Either way, humanity was ready to rise. The rising divide. The shift was subtle at first, a ripple through the fabric of human society that only a few could sense. In the distant colonies, settlers whispered of strange occurrences, while on Earth, media outlets brushed off rumors of extraordinary feats as mere exaggerations. Yet beneath the surface, humanity was quietly fracturing. For centuries, humanity had been unified by external pressures, alien empires, hostile environments, and the endless frontier of space. But now, the greatest challenge wasn't out there in the stars. It was growing within. Commander Elias Rice saw the signs long before the first official report crossed his desk. Tensions were rising between the enhanced and the unchanged. A house divided. On Earth, the divide manifested in whispers and side glances. Children who excelled far beyond their peers were quietly transferred to specialized academies. Workers in heavy industry colonies outperformed machines with raw strength. Soldiers returned from campaigns with no visible injuries, despite reports detailing wounds that should have been fatal. But in the colonies, the divide was less subtle and far more dangerous. On Arcanus 7, laborers working the fields no longer feared heatwaves or exhaustion. Their bodies adapted, their stamina seemingly endless. Yet their neighbors, those who showed no signs of change, began to resent them. The unchanged whispered of favoritism, isolation, and ultimately, alienation. "It's not fair," said Merrick, an Arcanus native, during an impromptu protest outside a government building. His voice echoed across the crowd. "They get stronger, faster, and we're left behind. We bleed for this colony while they thrive in the very same fields. What happens when we're no longer useful?" In response, a woman stepped forward from the crowd. Her face was sun-kissed from the Arcanus heat, but her eyes shimmered with something unnatural, something more. "We didn't ask for this," she said calmly. "We didn't choose to evolve. But it's happening, whether you accept it or not." Merrick's lips tightened, and that's the problem. The fracture grows. The Galactic Council remained unaware of the deepening schism within humanity. To the rest of the galaxy, humans were still the ambitious, fragile newcomers clawing for relevance among the stars. But Reyes knew better. The SS Varian's intelligence reports painted a grim picture, dozens of colonies showing increasing signs of unrest. In some, the enhanced quietly left to form isolated communities, fearing persecution. In others, they remained, their very existence becoming a point of contention. And then there was Vega 3. The Vega Incident. Vega 3 was a mining colony on the fringes of human expansion, one of the first settlements established beyond the protection of major trade routes. Life there had always been difficult, with scarce resources and a hostile atmosphere. That changed when a small portion of the population began exhibiting enhanced abilities. Initially, they were celebrated as pioneers, proof that humanity could survive even the harshest worlds. But as time passed, resentment grew. The enhanced thrived while the unchanged struggled to keep up. It all came to a head during a supply shortage. When rations dwindled, the enhanced endured the deprivation, seemingly unaffected. The rest of the colony did not. One night, a group of unenhanced workers stormed the settlement's central hub, demanding equal access to resources. Tensions boiled over into violence. By dawn, 4 lay dead, 3 unchanged workers, and 1 enhanced miner. The news spread like wildfire, igniting similar tensions across the outer colonies. The Council's shadow. Rez's calm flickered to life as he reviewed the Vega reports. Chancellor Varick's voice crackled through the channel. "Commander Reyes, we've received troubling signals from your colonies. Is there something you wish to report?" Reyes's jaw tightened. Nothing beyond the usual struggles of frontier life. The colonies are adapting to harsh conditions as expected. There was a pause on the other end, long enough for Reyes to realize Varick wasn't convinced. "Very well," Varick said finally. "But I remind you, Commander, secrets have a way of unraveling." The transmission ended, but the weight of Varick's words lingered. The search for answers. Dr. Amelia Grant, still stationed on New Terra, continued her research in secret. But as the divide between the enhanced and unchanged grew, she found herself drawn to a more pressing question. Why now? For centuries, human evolution had followed a predictable course. There were genetic variations, but nothing on this scale, nothing that could reshape an entire species within a few generations. She pored over ancient Earth records, tracing genetic markers back to humanity's earliest days. It wasn't until she stumbled upon references to the X3 viral anomaly that things began to fall into place. Buried in classified Earth Defense Coalition archives, she found details on a forgotten project, a virus, dormant for millennia, capable of triggering rapid evolution under extreme conditions. The virus had been eradicated, or so humanity believed. What if it wasn't eradicated? Amelia whispered to herself. What if it simply slept until humanity left Earth? A dangerous path. Amelia's findings raised more questions than answers. If the virus was responsible for humanity's sudden evolution, then humanity's survival hinged on understanding and controlling it. Riss was hesitant to act on Amelia's theories. He knew the risks of weaponizing human evolution. But the galaxy wasn't waiting. Reports began to trickle in of enhanced humans, demonstrating abilities far beyond what was publicly known. Telepathic communication across vast distances, precognitive reflexes during combat, and even reports of soldiers manipulating energy fields without the aid of technology. Rice realized the truth Amelia had feared. Humanity's evolution wasn't stopping. It was accelerating. The breaking point. The divide could no longer be contained. On colony worlds like Arcanus 7 and Vega 3, the unenhanced began organizing in earnest, demanding recognition and equality. Protests erupted, and in some colonies, small skirmishes broke out between factions. On Earth, the Lunar Colony Council proposed legislation that would require enhanced individuals to register their abilities, something Reyes knew would only fuel the flames. He stood at the crossroads of humanity's future. Either he guided humanity through this transformation, or he watched as internal conflict consumed them from within. Riz clenched his fists. The galaxy already sees us as dangerous. If we divide ourselves now, they'll finish what we started. He turned to Amelia. It's time to bring the enhanced and the unchanged together, whether they like it or not. The birth of the Human Accord. The halls of the Earth Defense Coalition's Central Command echoed with tense footsteps as Commander Elias Reyes paced before the council chamber doors. Inside, humanity's future hung by a thread. Across the colonies, the schism between the enhanced and the unchanged was no longer just a political problem. It was becoming a full-scale crisis. On the far edges of settled space, reports detailed entire colonies breaking away, declaring themselves autonomous from Earth's authority. Enhanced settlers on worlds like Arcanus 7 and Vega 3 claimed independence, while unenhanced populations demanded equal representation or outright separation. It was a slow, silent collapse. Riz knew the pattern. He'd seen it before in the fall of alien empires, civilizations that tore themselves apart not because of external threats, but because of what festered within. Humanity was heading down that same path. And if the Galactic Council caught wind of this divide, they would intervene, violently, if necessary. The gathering storm. The council chamber doors hissed open, revealing a circular room filled with the most powerful human leaders. Representatives from Earth, Mars, Luna, and the outer colonies all convened under one roof for the first time in over a decade. Tensions were palpable, the air thick with unspoken animosity. Chancellor Erin Voss, the head of the Lunar Colony Council, sat with her arms crossed, her expression cold. "Commander Reyes," she began, her voice clipped. "I assume you've brought solutions, not more excuses." Rice stepped forward, standing in the center of the chamber. He knew what was at stake. Either he unified humanity today, or he risked losing it tomorrow. I won't waste your time with pleasantries, Ray said, meeting the gaze of each representative. We all know why we're here. The divide between enhanced and unchanged humans is growing by the day. Colonies are fracturing. Protests are turning to riots. And if we don't act now, we risk losing everything we've built beyond Earth. Voss narrowed her eyes. And what exactly do you propose? That we force integration. Mandatory enhancement. You're asking us to gamble the future of our species on something we barely understand. Rise's jaw tightened. I'm not suggesting we force anything. I'm suggesting we build something new. An accord, binding enhanced and unchanged alike. We need to forge a path forward where both groups can coexist. Because whether we like it or not, this isn't stopping. He activated a hologram, projecting data collected by Dr. Amelia Grant. Genetic patterns flickered across the room, showcasing the accelerating mutations. In the next 2 decades, Race continued, more than 60% of human colonies will show signs of enhanced evolution. This isn't limited to a few isolated groups. This is the next stage of our species. The resistance within. A murmur spread across the chamber. Some council members exchanged worried glances, while others whispered to aides. General Tiber Cole, representing the military forces stationed across the outer colonies, leaned forward, his scared face twisted into a scowl. I fought in the mud and blood of human wars for decades, Rays, Cole growled. I respect your experience, but you can't expect the unchanged to accept this without a fight. People fear what they don't understand. And right now, the enhanced might as well be aliens. They aren't aliens, Rays countered sharply. They're our brothers, our children, our neighbors. This isn't about separation. It's about unity, about creating a system that gives both sides a stake in humanity's future. Cole crossed his arms, clearly unconvinced. And if they don't want that future? Rise's gaze hardened. Then we show them the cost of standing alone. The first step. New Terra's Accord. The meeting dragged deep into the night. By the time the final votes were cast, exhaustion hung over the chamber. In the end, the proposal passed, but narrowly. Riss left the chamber knowing the hardest part still lay ahead. Convincing leaders was one thing. Convincing entire colonies was another. The Human Accord, as it was named, outlined a plan to unify enhanced and unchanged colonies under a shared council. Enhanced individuals were to be given representation and equal status, while unenhanced citizens would be granted protections from discrimination. It was a fragile compromise, but it was enough to move forward. The first test would take place on New Terra. New Terra's challenge. 3 weeks later, Race stood on a raised platform overlooking New Terra's central square. The crowd below was restless, a blend of enhanced settlers and unenhanced laborers. Their tension radiated like heat, threatening to ignite at any moment. Race stepped to the edge of the platform, activating the microphone embedded in his collar. His voice echoed through the square. I know why you're angry, Race began. I know many of you fear what's happening. You look at your neighbors and see strangers, enhanced strength, faster reflexes, abilities you don't understand. And those of you who are enhanced feel like outcasts in your own homes. He paused, letting his words settle. The crowd shifted uneasily. But humanity has been here before. Every step of our evolution was met with fear, fire, the wheel, flight, space travel. Every time we pushed forward, we faced resistance, and every time, we endured. Rise's eyes swept over the crowd, lingering on Merrick, the Arcanist protest leader, who stood with his arms crossed. This accord isn't about forcing anyone to change, Rice continued. It's about giving us all a chance to grow together. The galaxy won't wait for us to figure this out. If we divide now, we'll fall. And I promise you, the rest of the galaxy will not pick us back up. Silence hung in the air. Finally, Merrick stepped forward, his voice cutting through the quiet. And if this accord fails, Rise met his gaze firmly. Then we try again. Because failure isn't an option. Humanity's survival depends on us standing as one. Unity, but at a cost. The Accord's implementation was slow and painful. Protests continued, and some colonies resisted outright. But the seed of unity had been planted. In the shadows, however, Reyes knew new threats were emerging. The Galactic Council was beginning to take notice, and whispers of humanity's evolution spread beyond human space. For now, the human accord held. But Reyes understood one truth above all. Unity would not come without sacrifice. The real war for humanity's future was only just beginning. The War of Ascension. The first shot of the War of Ascension was not fired by aliens, nor by the factions of the Galactic Council. It came from humanity itself. Aboard the Vanguard, a deep space research vessel patrolling the outer rim, alarms blared as a crimson light flooded the control deck. Commander Elias Rice tightened his grip on the railing, staring at the holoscreen before him. Wreckage floated in orbit over Vega 3, a colony that had declared independence just weeks before. "They hit their own," whispered Lieutenant Sarah, disbelief thick in her voice. Enhanced forces attacked an unenhanced settlement over a resource dispute. Rice's expression hardened. He had feared this moment since the day the human accord was signed. The fragile peace he fought to build had begun to shatter. And once humanity turned on itself, the rest of the galaxy would not stand idly by. The breaking point. The galaxy had been patient with humanity's rise. Too patient. To the Galactic Council, humans had always been a curiosity, an unpredictable variable to observe but not interfere with. But rumors of the enhanced were no longer rumors. Word had spread beyond human borders. Tales of regenerating soldiers, of workers capable of laboring without sleep, and of children who could outthink machines caught the attention of rival empires. It was not long before the Brackthul Dominion, one of the oldest and most militarized species in the galaxy, sought to exploit humanity's weakness. In the far reaches of space, Brackthul warships appeared in orbit over fractured colonies, offering alliances and military backing to the Unchanged, promising protection from the enhanced populations that now dominated many colonies. In return, they demanded human technology, territory, and most importantly, information on the virus suspected to be accelerating human evolution. Some colonies accepted, others resisted. The human accord was unraveling, and Reyes stood at the heart of the storm. Betrayal from within. On the colony of Lorne's Edge, where unenhanced settlers still outnumbered the enhanced, Reyes arrived in person to oversee peace talks. He stood before a gathering of leaders, laborers, politicians, and military personnel. Merrick, the same man who had questioned Reyes on New Terra, now led Lorne's resistance. "You promised unity," Merrick growled, pacing before the assembled crowd. "But unity means nothing when half of us are left behind. Look around, Commander. The enhanced don't need us. They work faster, live longer, and now they're taking control of every major colony. You call it progress. I call it conquest." Rice's voice remained steady, but his heart weighed heavily in his chest. "We've come too far to divide ourselves now, Merrick. The Brackthul are not here to protect you. They are here to divide us further, to claim what we've built." Merrick's eyes darkened. Maybe division is exactly what we need. Maybe the unenhanced deserve their own future, without the enhanced lording over them. The words hung like a blade in the air. Before Reyes could respond, the blast rang out. A gunshot echoed through the chamber. A bullet struck one of the enhanced representatives seated at the negotiation table, and chaos erupted. The fall of Lorne's Edge. By nightfall, the colony was burning. Lorne's Edge became the first colony to fall into open civil war. The enhanced rallied to defend themselves, while the unenhanced, supported by Brackthul mercenaries, took up arms. Reyes ordered the evacuation of remaining civilians, but as his shuttle lifted off, he watched the colony collapse into violence below. His comm crackled with Amelia Grant's voice from New Terra. "Elias, this is spreading. There are uprisings across half the colonies. Some enhanced settlers are already leaving human space, forming isolated fleets to escape the fighting. Reyes exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of his nose. If this continues, we won't survive it. But even as he spoke, Reyes knew it was already too late to stop what had begun. The Galactic Council intervenes. 2 months later, the Galactic Council formally issued a decree that shook the human species to its core. Until the conflict within humanity is resolved, human expansion will cease. No new colonies will be permitted beyond existing borders. Any attempt to settle uncharted systems will be met with force. The galaxy had drawn its line, but humanity had never been one to respect boundaries. Enhanced colonists fled beyond the Council's reach, settling hidden worlds on the fringes of space, while the unchanged clung to the safety of sanctioned colonies under alien protection. A new frontier emerged, one ungoverned, lawless, and hostile. In the dark voids between settled worlds, enhanced fleets formed nomadic communities, building technologies that far outstripped anything Earth had ever produced. These fleets became known as the Shins of Ascension, rogue humans whose abilities continued to grow beyond comprehension. The galaxy feared them, and Reyes understood why. The last stand at New Terra. In the final days of the war, the battle for New Terra became humanity's reckoning point. Enhanced and unchanged forces clashed across the planet's surface, and alien warships hovered in orbit, watching, waiting to intervene if the conflict spiraled beyond containment. Reyes led the defense, standing alongside enhanced soldiers whose regenerative abilities kept them fighting long past the limits of ordinary humans. Merrick led the opposition. The two men faced each other one last time on the bridge overlooking the capital city. "You're fighting the inevitable," Reyes said, lowering his weapon. "The enhanced aren't humanity's enemy, Merrick. They're its future." Merrick's hands trembled, his gun aimed at Reyes' chest. "I can't let that future come at the cost of everything we are." Silence stretched between them. In the end, Merrick lowered his weapon. The war ended not with blood, but with a single act of surrender. The path forward. In the aftermath, the human accord was reforged, this time by both enhanced and unchanged leaders. The Shins of Ascension were granted autonomy, allowed to chart their own course beyond human borders. But humanity had changed forever. The enhanced became the vanguard of human expansion, pioneers of unknown worlds, while the unchanged remained the caretakers of Earth and its core colonies. The galaxy watched, uneasy, as humanity evolved into something far greater and far more dangerous than ever before. As Reyes stood on the bridge of the Vanguard once more, he looked out at the stars and smiled faintly. Humanity's greatest war had never been against aliens. It was always against itself. And in the ashes of that war, humanity rose anew, stronger, united, and ready to shape the galaxy in its image.